Florida has a place so dangerous they don't advertise the warnings, and a beach so perfect the state literally tried to keep it secret from tourists. The disturbing part? Most travel guides recommend the dangerous one and completely ignore the paradise. Which list is your dream destination actually on? Florida has over 1,300 miles of coastline, beaches everywhere. So why do people keep ending up at the same overcrowded disaster zones? Let's start with Panama City Beach, or as locals call it, the Redneck Riviera. That nickname didn't come from nowhere. This place earned it through decades of cheap motels, dollar beer specials, and spring break chaos that makes your college stories look tame. We're talking about a beach that regularly packs over 100,000 visitors onto a stretch of sand you could walk in 20 minutes. And the crime? During peak spring break weekends, police report hundreds of arrests. Not tickets. Arrests, drugs, fights, public intoxication. It's basically a parking lot with palm trees and probable cause. Here's what really got me, though. The water quality fails bacterial testing after heavy rains. The stormwater infrastructure is so old that when it rains, you're basically swimming in whatever washed off the streets. Romantic, right? But wait, at least the food scene makes up for it? Nope. You drove 8 hours to eat at the same Applebee's you have back home. The same mini golf, the same everything. I once counted 14 chain restaurants in a single mile. My hometown strip mall has more character. The beach itself is fine. White sand, emerald water when the bacteria cooperates. But here's the thing. Destin is 40 minutes away with better sand. Pensacola is an hour away with actual history. Panama City Beach exists because it's cheap, not because it's good. If you're 21 and want to wake up with regrets and a mysterious wristband, this is your paradise. Everyone else, you deserve better. Speaking of deserving better, wait until you hear about Orlando's 11-mile monument to tourist traps. 11 miles of pure wallet extraction, that's International Drive in Orlando, and locals won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. See, iDrive wasn't built for experiences. It was engineered to separate tourists from cash as efficiently as possible. 35 million visitors cram onto this road every year, and the infrastructure just laughs at them. Traffic, perpetually gridlocked. The road simply wasn't designed for this volume. You'll spend half your vacation staring at brake lights, watching your rental car's gas needle drop. But here's where it gets truly ridiculous. Medieval Times charges over $70 per person. For what? Lukewarm chicken you eat with your hands while watching a jousting show that hasn't changed since Reagan was president. I went once. Once. My soup was cold, my night lost in the first round, and I left genuinely confused about what I'd paid for. Then there's Wonderworks. Ripley's Believe It or Not. Places that sound exciting until you realize they're basically overpriced warehouses of random stuff. Shrunken heads and optical illusions don't hit the same when you've dropped $40 to see them. And the weird part is, the real danger isn't even the attractions. It's the timeshare salespeople. They'll approach you with free tickets to Disney or Universal. Sounds amazing, right? The catch is a 4-hour high-pressure presentation where trained professionals make you feel guilty for not buying a vacation property in Orlando. 4 hours of your trip, gone. Locals call this strip exactly what it is. A manufactured experience for people who don't know better options exist. Real Orlando has incredible food scenes, actual cultural districts, and theme parks that deliver actual value. Speaking of places trading on past glory, wait until you hear what happened to Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach tried to have it both ways and failed at both. See, back in the 80s and 90s, this place was the spring break destination. MTV filmed here. Crowds numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Then the city decided it wanted families instead of college kids, so they cracked down hard. Banned alcohol on the beach, increased police presence tenfold, basically told young people to get lost. Problem is, they forgot to replace that tourism with anything else. Now you've got a beach town that doesn't know what it wants to be. The boardwalk feels like walking through a time capsule nobody asked for. Aging arcades with games from 3 decades ago. Empty storefronts with sun-bleached "for rent" signs. It's like visiting your hometown mall after Amazon killed retail. And here's the famous novelty everyone talks about. You can drive your car directly on the sand. Sounds cool for about 11 minutes. Then you're trying to relax while Dodge Rams cruise past your towel at 10 miles per hour. Nothing says peaceful beach day like exhaust fumes with your sunscreen. The crime situation doesn't help either. Violent crime rates run significantly higher than Florida's average, especially in neighborhoods just a few blocks from tourist areas. Locals know which streets to avoid. Visitors usually don't, but wait, there's more bad news. Red tide algae blooms have increasingly plagued these waters. We're talking respiratory irritation the moment you get near the shore. Dead fish washing up by the thousands. The smell? Picture a seafood restaurant dumpster in August. That's being generous. The Daytona International Speedway sits miles inland too, completely disconnected from the beach. Racing fans and beachgoers exist in separate worlds here. Speaking of places that sound better than they actually are, our next spot takes disappointment to an entirely different level. All right, let's head to the dead center of Florida. Literally. Ocala sits smack in the middle of the state, which sounds convenient until you realize it means you're equally far from everything worth visiting. The beach? An hour and a half minimum. Orlando's theme parks? Still an hour drive. You're basically marooned in landlocked limbo. The city calls itself the horse capital of the world. And look, they're not lying. Over 400 horse farms surround the area. But here's the thing. Unless you're actively in the market for a thoroughbred, or you find watching horses stand in fields thrilling, this selling point means absolutely nothing. Now, let's talk weather. Summer temperatures regularly blast past 95 degrees with humidity so thick you could swim through it. Coastal cities get ocean breezes. Ocala gets nothing. You just marinate in your own sweat. Remember Silver Springs, that glass-bottom boat attraction that drew millions of visitors back in the day? The state took it over, and, well, government management happened. Fewer animals, dated facilities. It's like visiting a museum exhibit about what fun used to look like. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Marion County consistently ranks among Florida's highest for drug-related arrests. Walk through downtown and you'll notice the struggling storefronts tell that story pretty clearly. I drove through Ocala once thinking I'd find some hidden gem the tourists missed. Spoiler alert, I found a Cracker Barrel and regret. That's it. The honest truth, everything Ocala offers exists in better versions elsewhere in Florida. Better springs, better restaurants, better literally everything. But speaking of underwhelming, wait until you hear about Jacksonville Beach. It's Florida's largest city that somehow managed to have the personality of a beige minivan. Jacksonville Beach gets marketed as Florida's hidden gem. It's not. It's Florida's most aggressively average beach experience wrapped in traffic and strip malls. Here's the thing. Jacksonville is actually the largest city by land area in the continental United States. Sounds impressive, right? Well, that size creates a problem. Everything spreads so far apart that you need a car to grab a coffee. Then another 15-minute drive for lunch. Then 30 minutes to reach the actual beach. And when you finally arrive, the sand is fine, the water is fine, everything is just fine. That's the Jacksonville Beach experience in one word. Fine. Not terrible, not amazing, just aggressively mediocre. The beach lacks any defining personality. Miami has Art Deco glamour. St. Pete has quirky arts districts. The Panhandle has that emerald green water that looks photoshopped. Jacksonville Beach has a Panera Bread with ocean views. I'm not exaggerating about the chains, by the way. Drive down Beach Boulevard and count the national franchises versus local spots. You'll run out of fingers on the local side pretty quick. Then there's the bridge situation. Only a few bridges connect the beach communities to mainland services. Rush hour turns a 10-minute trip into 45 minutes of staring at brake lights. You drove 800 miles to escape your daily commute, and here you are, commuting again. The nightlife? Decent enough if you're 23 and easily impressed, but compared to Miami's scene or even St. Augustine's historic charm, it feels like someone photocopied a generic beach town template and hit print. Look, Jacksonville Beach won't ruin your vacation. It just won't make it memorable either. But now that we've covered the places to skip, let's flip the script to destinations actually worth your time and money. 90 miles from Cuba. That's it. You could practically wave at Havana if the curve of the earth didn't get in the way. Key West feels like you left the country without actually leaving. No passport, no customs, no figuring out exchange rates. Just pure Caribbean vibes on American soil. And the history here? Hemingway didn't just visit. He lived here, wrote to have and have not here, drank here, a lot. You can still belly up to the same bars he stumbled out of. The man's six-toed cats still roam his old house, and yes, they're descendants of his actual cats. 80-something years of polydactyl felines just vibing. Now, Duval Street, the famous Duval Crawl, isn't some tourist gimmick invented last Tuesday. It's a legitimate mile-long bar hop through buildings older than most American cities. Start at one end, hit every watering hole, finish at the other. Simple concept, challenging execution. But here's what surprised me most. Every single evening since the 1960s, locals and tourists gather at Mallory Square to watch the sunset. Every single evening. Street performers, artists, food vendors. It's become almost religious. The weather cooperates too. Key West has never dropped below 41 degrees in recorded history. Ever. It's the only frost-free spot in the continental United States. Your grandma's joints will thank you. Want to snorkel? Dry Tortugas National Park sits 70 miles west, and the water clarity there hits 100 feet. You'll see shipwrecks from the surface, not murky suggestions of shipwrecks. Actual ships. The whole island runs on what locals call island time. Rushing is basically rude. Flip-flops count as formal wear. Speaking of history that actually delivers on its promises, our next stop predates Plymouth Rock by 55 years. St. Augustine doesn't just claim to be America's oldest city, it actually is. Founded in 1565 by Spanish explorers, this place was already 55 years old when the Pilgrims showed up at Plymouth Rock. That's not marketing spin, that's just math. And unlike those historic Florida attractions that were built last Tuesday to look old, these streets are the real deal. 400 years of footsteps worn into the same stone Spanish soldiers marched on. You can't fake that kind of authenticity. The Castillo de San Marcos might be the most impressive fort most Americans have never heard of. Oldest masonry fort in the continental United States. Never captured. Not once. Multiple armies tried over 300 years, and every single one failed. The walls are made of coquina, basically compressed seashells, which sounds ridiculous until you learn that cannonballs just sank into it instead of shattering it. Nature's body armor. St. George Street gives you walkable shopping and dining in actual historic buildings. Real ones. I spent an afternoon wandering through and genuinely forgot I was in Florida. Felt more like a quiet corner of Spain somehow. But here's what surprised me most. The beaches nearby, practically empty compared to South Florida's chaos. Anastasia State Park offers pristine shoreline and camping for under $30 a night. That's cheaper than parking at some Florida attractions. Oh, and the ghost tours? They've got material. This city reportedly has more documented hauntings per square mile than anywhere in America. 4 centuries of history means 4 centuries of people with unfinished business. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the stories are genuinely creepy. So we've covered old, really old. But what about wild? Like genuinely untamed wilderness that exists nowhere else on Earth? The Everglades isn't a swamp. I know. Everyone calls it that. But here's the thing. It's actually a river. 60 miles wide, 6 inches deep, flowing so slowly you can't even tell it's moving. This ecosystem exists nowhere else on planet Earth. Not in Africa, not in South America, nowhere. When it's gone forever. And airboat tours? Forget those sad roadside zoos where alligators sit behind glass looking depressed. Out here, you're in their living room. A 12-footer slides past your boat close enough to touch. You won't touch it, obviously, but you could. The park protects 36 threatened or endangered species, including the Florida panther. Fewer than 200 of those cats remain alive. 200. That's it for the entire species. Here's the smart move, though. Visit during winter dry season, December through April. Why? The water shrinks. Animals crowd around whatever pools remain. Suddenly, you're seeing dozens of alligators, herons, and turtles in a single glance. It's like nature turned on a wildlife magnet. Now, here's what surprised me. The Everglades covers 1.5 million acres, bigger than Rhode Island, but most tourists only see 2 spots, Shark Valley and Anhinga Trail. They drive in, walk a boardwalk, take some photos, and leave thinking they've seen it. They've seen maybe 1%. Want something unforgettable? Camp on a chickie. That's a wooden platform built on stilts in the middle of the swamp. You're sleeping above black water, surrounded by stars, listening to alligators grunt in the darkness. It's either the most peaceful night of your life or the most terrifying, possibly both. But if natural beauty is your thing, wait until you see what washes up on Sanibel Island. Shells. Everywhere you look, shells. Most Florida beaches give you broken fragments and the occasional sand dollar if you're lucky. Sanibel Island, it's like someone dumped an entire ocean's worth of perfect specimens onto one shoreline. Here's why. The island sits east to west instead of north to south like most barrier islands. This weird angle turns it into a giant catcher's mitt for anything drifting in from the Gulf of Mexico. Shells that would wash past other beaches pile up here by the thousands. And I mean thousands. Locals have a name for what happens to visitors: the Sanibel Stoop. That's the hunched-over posture everyone adopts within 5 minutes of hitting the sand. You'll be laughing at the bent-over tourists until you spot a perfect Junonia. Then you're one of them. But here's what really sets this place apart. The island basically said no to Florida's typical development madness. Buildings can't go higher than 4 stories. Chain restaurants? Banned. You won't find a single McDonald's or Starbucks on the entire island. My grandfather would call this progress going backwards, and he'd mean it as a compliment. 1/3 of Sanibel is actually a wildlife refuge. JN Ding Darling covers over 5,000 acres where you can kayak through mangroves while manatees drift underneath your boat. Dolphins show up too, probably judging your paddling technique. Now, I won't pretend everything's perfect. Hurricane Ian absolutely devastated Sanibel in 2022. The causeway connecting it to the mainland was destroyed. Many thought the island was finished. They rebuilt. The causeway reopened. And somehow, this community's recovery made it even more special. Speaking of places that bounced back from history, Tampa has a neighborhood where Cuban immigrants literally invented a sandwich. Now here's something most tourists completely miss. And honestly, that's a shame. Ybor City sits right in Tampa, but walking down 7th Avenue feels like you've stepped into Havana circa 1920. Cuban, Spanish, and Italian immigrants built this entire neighborhood in the 1880s for one reason: cigars. And get this, they still roll them by hand today. Same techniques, same buildings, same smoky smell drifting out of shop doorways. But the real treasure, the Cuban sandwich, was literally invented here. Not Miami, here. The specific combination of ham, roasted pork, Swiss cheese, pickles, and mustard pressed on Cuban bread. That's Ybor's gift to American cuisine, and nobody can take that away. The original brick streets remain intact. Wrought iron balconies hang overhead exactly like they did over a century ago. Nothing was rebuilt to look old, it just is old. Columbia Restaurant opened in 1905. Still serving food, still family-owned. Their 1905 salad recipe hasn't changed because why mess with perfection? I've eaten there twice, and watching them toss that salad tableside feels like dinner theater your grandparents would actually enjoy. And the chickens. Free-roaming chickens just wander the streets like they own the place, because technically, their ancestors did. Immigrant families brought them over 130 years ago, and their descendants never left. Try explaining that to someone who just spent $200 at a theme park. Here's what separates Ybor from manufactured tourist traps. You're not watching actors pretend to be immigrants. You're walking through actual working-class history, tasting it, smelling it. The cigar smoke, the Cuban coffee, the pressed sandwiches. Real history doesn't need a gift shop, though Ybor has those too, so there you have it. 5 places to skip, 5 that'll actually make the drive worth it.